Right now at the White House, President Donald Trump and the nation's top officials hold their monthly cabinet meeting. This one is a big deal. The U.S.-backed peace deal gets the green light of Hamas, and Israel is expected to formalize that green light in a vote yet to happen. This hopefully will end a years-long battle and promise the release of hostages.
One day, perhaps the entire story will be told about the events of yesterday, but suffice it to say, it's not an exaggeration that none of it would have been possible without the President of the United States being involved. It really began with your trip to the Middle East, where these relationships were forged with partners in the region, personal relationships, close relationships that created the foundation where all this was possible. Where I think this really took a turn. Remember, a month ago, no one thought this was possible. Where it really took a turn about a month ago, less than a couple weeks ago, is when we were at the United Nations, and you convened a historic meeting, not simply of Arab countries, but of Muslim-majority countries from around the world, including Indonesia was there, Pakistan was there, and created this coalition behind this plan. Then on that following Monday, you met with the Prime Minister of Israel here, and that plan was presented. And then, of course, our great negotiating team followed up on it. In the interim, again, perhaps the stories will be told, perhaps they will never be told. The President had some extraordinary phone calls and meetings that required a high degree of intensity and commitment, and made this happen. And I think what's important to understand is that yesterday what happened was really a human story. There's a geopolitical aspect to it, there's no doubt about it. It creates the conditions for Gaza to one day be a normal place again, and people to have a better life, and Israelis to be safe. But yesterday was a human story. And because of the work you put in, and honestly, not only is there no other leader in the world that could have put this together, Mr. President, but frankly, I don't know of any American president in the modern era that could have made this possible. Because of the actions you have taken unrelated to this, and because of who you are and what you've done and how you're viewed. And this weekend, because of that, at some point very soon, we are going to see 20 living human beings emerge from the darkness into the light for the first time in 2 years.
A human story. Now let's go live to Tel Aviv and CBS News reporter Haley Ott. Haley, what more do we know about what's been agreed on, and where do things go from here? Because we know where you are standing, people have high hopes, probably for the first time in several months.
Yeah, and just listening to that sound, we've actually heard very similar sentiments all day here in Hostage Square. We also recently heard a little bit more information about what we can expect in the coming days. The president saying that he's hopeful that hostages will be released Monday or Tuesday, so that gives us a bit more of a schedule for the upcoming week, or the implementation of this plan. Now, you'll recall that this is the first phase of that 20-point peace plan that the White House put together alongside Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu about 10 days ago. And there are still some more difficult elements of that proposal to be hammered out, like how Hamas will disarm, whether it will agree to step back from Palestinian politics, and who will govern Gaza. Those were all points included in that 20-point plan, but not in this first phase, and they will all come later. We've heard that U.S. Envoy Steve Witkoff and President Trump's son-in-law Jared Kushner have arrived in Israel now after taking part and attending those talks in Egypt over the last couple of days. Netanyahu is meeting with his cabinet, and then he'll meet with the government here. After that government meeting, a 24-hour clock will begin for Israel to retreat to an agreed line still within Gaza. And then a 72-hour period will begin for Hamas, during which it will be required to release all of those hostages.
And where you are right now has amazing significance, sort of scaffolding off of what Secretary of State Marco Rubio had to say about this being a human story. Maybe even you and your photographer can show us the people side of this story. We see that clock there behind you. We see the people there behind you. What are you hearing from hostage families?
Yes, I'm glad you can see this clock behind me. It has been, and maybe our photographer can sort of pan more around the crowd. It has been here every day for the past 2 years, marking the time in captivity for these hostages. And people here are really hopeful that soon they'll be able to turn it off. This is a really symbolic place where people have gathered throughout this war to be with one another when hostages have been freed in other partial deals, to support one another and to support the hostage family. And people, as you can see, are gathering here now. They've been singing, they've been playing drums, they've been many hostage families, members of the opposition, of the government have come here today to gather with one another and support one another because this is an enormous day here. For pretty much the last 2 years, many families of the hostages and many Israelis have been protesting, demanding that their government agree to some sort of deal to bring all the hostages home and end the war in Gaza. And now it seems like that really could finally be happening. In Gaza, where local health officials say over 67,000 people have been killed in this war and the humanitarian crisis has reached a real breaking point, our colleagues report similar scenes of relief, of hope, of celebration, that even though there's still a long way to go in some respects in terms of the next phase of this White House proposal, there really is hope at this point that this horrible chapter that's taken place over the last 2 years may finally be coming to a close.
We often say this, the human stories behind the headlines. Just want to thank you so much for taking us to where hostage families await the hope that their loved ones can be released. May it be so in the minutes and days ahead. Haley Ott, thank you so much.